really do any business for the commission, so that's
Okay.
fine. So we're going live. We're live now, so Red Hawk, you can start.
Okay, I'm going to call the meeting to order at 6:06 p.m. And would you do roll call?
Okay. Commissioner Allison,
Present.
Commissioner Van. Oh, we have someone coming in.
Hi, it's Patty Madigan.
Yay. Commissioner Madigan. Present. Okay, so we do have a quorum.
Fantastic. That's great. Glad to see you made it, Patty.
The fourth time try.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to public expression and non-agenda items. Is there anyone from the public want to speak?
There's no public expression.
Okay, moving on to the consent calendar.
Does everybody know, sorry to interrupt you, but does everybody know how the consent calendar works?
I believe so. I do. This is Patty.
You know, you could,
Okay, move forward then. Go ahead.
Okay, moving on with the consent calendar. Commissioners, are there anything any items on the consent calendar that you would like to pull for discussion or have a separate vote?
consent calendar means just previous minutes, correct?
It just means that nothing's going to be discussed. They're just accepted. We don't have to talk about it. We're just going to accept it as a whole.
It's
Yeah, I read through them all and I didn't see any changes or anything.
Okay, so there's nothing that's going to be pulled. Hang on just a second. Someone's calling me.
Patty. Oh, that's.
Pardon me, I didn't hear all that.
Okay, so with the consent calendar, Patty, are you good with
Yes.
that? Okay, D's on the, somebody's trying to call into D right now, so we'll or wait a second here.
I'm fine with the agenda as sent. And I don't see any reason to change or remove anything that needs to be pulled aside.
I'm just waiting for Dee to come back on with us, and then we'll move on with the agenda. We're going to have to do a motion here. Okay, so on the consent calendar, there's no items for further discussion or separate vote. I would like to call for a motion.
I so move. This is Patty.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion. Go ahead.
So Patty, you have a motion to.
I can second it. I can second the motion.
Okay. Fantastic. Okay, moving.
I believe Randy was the first. Patty's the second.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Do you have that, Dee?
Yep.
Okay, moving on to reports.
Now, did you guys, you have to vote.
Oh yeah, we have to vote, sorry.
Do you want a roll call vote or a voice vote?
Let's do a quick roll call vote.
Okay, Pallison, Commissioner Pallison,
Yes.
Commissioner Van,
Yes, approve.
Commissioner Madigan.
Aye.
Okay. Vote passes unanimously.
Okay, now we're moving on to reports.
Now we're moving on to reports.
We have California Fish and Wildlife biologist Tom Batter with us to give us a quick update on some elk work that he's been working on. So Tom, it's all you now.
Cool, thanks, Red Hawk. So yeah, I'll just update kind of on two sort of big picture items that we've been working on lately for Tule elk and deer in Mendocino. So first with Tule elk, this past February and March, my counterpart Carrington Hilson, our Region 1 elk biologist, We worked with our landowner partners to ground dart and collar Tule elk as part of this overall region-wide study on our elk resource. We successfully collared 6 female elk in Mendocino. So these represent the first collared elk since Tule elk were reintroduced into Mendocino in the late 70s, early 80s. And briefly, I'll break it down spatially. So we got a cow elk in Laytonville, 1 cow elk at Shamrock Ranch, 2 cows collared in Little Lake on the Willits Bypass property. It's managed in partnership with Caltrans and the Mendocino RCD, and then 2 cow elk in the Sherwood Valley. So we aim to deploy more collars after the calving season is over, and we're going to kind of target more inland. So Potter, Redwood, Round, and Eden Valleys. We're going to kind of shift that focus, and then also try to get some bull collars out this fall and winter. So anybody with property that elk occupy, we would be interested in hearing from you and potentially collaborating to try to get this done. We're also working on completing a monitoring plan for elk in Region 1, which includes Mendocino. So that includes plans for aerial and ground-based surveys. Like I said, most of the elk in this county reside on private property, so we're seeking partnerships with landowners interested in collaborating with us to grant property access and try to improve our elk research and monitoring. Our specific dates for these things, for both captures and surveys, they're yet to be determined, but I suspect I'll have an update on that on dates at a future meeting. Once we kind of iron things out internally. And then just briefly, also for deer, statewide, we're working on deer conservation unit monitoring plans, and Mendocino, we are primarily part of the North Coast DCU, and we are working on a plan to deploy 60 survival collars on female deer throughout the North Coast DCU. So that DCU is essentially all the B zones minus B4, the hunt zones, if you're familiar with that. So we're working on securing funding for collars and getting collars ordered right now. We've also been working with our GIS staff specialists to generate a spatial deployment plan. So we're specifically generating a random even distribution that is representative of ecoregion and property ownership combinations. And so once we get those randomly generated and kind of smooth out our plans and how we're gonna divvy up staff time and everything, we'll start reaching out to public and private land operators to seek access and iron out those plans. And so we're aiming to start that this fall, and then that'll kind of be, I think, almost a year-round thing. It's going to be pretty spread out, and as staff time and access to property allows, and so it'll be pretty flexible in that regard, but pretty rigid in terms of where these random points are going to be distributed, so that we conserve that level of randomness and the sort of scientific standard operating procedure. So those are our sort of big picture things right now that we're working on. Also I've of course been working with individuals experiencing human wildlife conflict as usual, as well as our conflict specialist, Austin Reeder. And so that's pretty much the gist of what's going on now. And, of course, if you're experiencing human wildlife conflict, please, use our wildlife incident report tool that can be found online. You can also email me at thomas.batter@wildlife.ca.gov. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you guys. Yes, Red Hawk, I see you got a hand up.
You bet. So just a real quick question, with the elk that you collared, you got 6 in the county. Have you had any data feedback of their movements or anything of that nature? Are they like, for example, the 2 in the Willits bypass area, are those 2 elk together, or are they separated into smaller groups, or do you have any of that data at all?
Sure, yeah, so the fix rate is at 6.5 hours. So every 6.5 hours, it'll take a GPS point and deliver that. And we can log in to an online database and look at that data. We haven't, so we can look at the raw data to kind of monitor them and just get a general idea. It's, we want a year, 2 years worth of data before we actually analyze it statistically. But just, those kind of daily monitoring, it seems like those elk generally have pretty synchronous movements, so they're probably sticking together, but they've gone in different, been on different ends of the property from time to time. So it looks like there's a little bit of, group cohesion, and then they'll split off and then come back together. As expected, we're seeing pretty concentrated use. Again, these are all females that we have collared in different groups, and so we're seeing pretty concentrated use spatially. Once we get bull collars out, I would expect that we see more diffusion of space use, as the males tend to wander about a little bit more. But this is just the start of a long-term monitoring project where, like I said, the last time we had any collar data was from the late 70s and 80s. And that was when there are radio telemetry. And so you're out doing triangulation out, in the field. And so it was way less accurate data back then. So we're really starting kind of from the ground up again. And so, these 6 are a great start, and we're going to build off of that and expand our knowledge base, and then use this data to hopefully improve our survey efforts, make them more efficient and more representative, and get those bounded statistical estimates where we can make more sound management decisions based off of better data. So anybody that is willing to host us on their property for these efforts, it's only going to benefit your elk resource and the knowledge base that we have to improve our management of your elk resource. And so we'd really appreciate any collaboration or any information that any folks in the public can provide.
Sounds good.
This is Patty. I can't raise my hand. I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I don't have any updates about Redwood Valley. I retired from the Mendocino County RCD, but I know that we have quite a robust herd in the Little Lake Valley there in the mitigation lands. And my question would be about collaring bull elk and the depredation that is allowed with the tags that are, I think there's 1 or 2 per year. How will that be facilitated with making sure that they're not killing any of your subjects of your study?
Well, so I think you mean the 2 general tags for the general hunt season. So depredation is a different thing.
Oh, I'm sorry, different term. Yeah.
Yeah. But so it's perfectly legal to harvest an elk that is collared.
Okay.
It does take effort and time to do it, but harvest of an animal, that is still data. And in the hunt packet that a tag holder, if they draw that tag, they'll receive information about the collar. If they harvest a collared animal, they just need to get in touch with us and return the collar so we can retrieve all that data from it. So yeah, it's not.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not a big issue. If I know some hunters feel weird about harvesting a collared animal, but you don't need to. It's part of the overall picture. Yeah, part of the overall picture, trying to understand things that affect these animals. But I think for Mendocino, we only have bull tags for the general hunt, so there won't be any collared bulls for this next hunt season. We won't have to worry about that now, but yeah, in the future, hopefully we'll get some bulls collared, and then we'll just kind of see how it shakes out.
Great. Anybody else have any more questions for Tom? Okay. So
This is Patty again. I just wanted to ask him about the, I'm sorry, maybe I'm speaking out of turn, but I would like to know about the elk herd that's in Cottoneva Creek near Usal, if that's being monitored.
Oh, the elk up in Sinkyone?
Yeah, that kind of goes down to Highway 1 in Cottoneva Creek as it's sort of around Rockport.
in the Usal area.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
Carrington Hilson, she had 2 cows that were collared in that area. I think she collared them 2 years ago or over a year ago, and collected that data before the collars failed. So we do have some collar data for that area.
Cool.
We also have, that observation database that would be really useful for because that is a difficult to access region. So anything that can be contributed to that database, any observations along Highway 1 there in that Rockport area would be really valuable.
Yeah, I have photos.
Yeah, if you have photos, I would love to see those and get that into our database if you'd be willing to share that.
Sure. Yeah, no problem.
That'd be great.
So,
Thanks. That's it from me.
okay, I have brought up one other question. So Patty has photos. Now, is that something she can upload into your guys's reporting application?
Yeah, so on that observation database, there's an option to upload photos, and sometimes your cell phone. So in that region, if you don't have cell service, it's a little bit more difficult, but sometimes our phones will geotag where you took a photo, and then so it'll automatically load that point where you took the photo onto that map, and then you just enter all the other info. But otherwise, yeah, you can select the location on the map and then upload those photos. And I think you can upload multiple photos. So if you took 5 really awesome photos from one spot, that'd be great. That'd be really valuable to have logged into that database, and it'll only serve to improve our monitoring efforts and understanding of distribution and how they might be moving about the landscape.
Perfect. Patty, are you familiar with that app?
I can figure it out because I can work with the folks that are managing the Willits Little Lake Valley, and they're very aware of it.
Perfect.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Great place to upload these photos to.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That area.
Do you have any? Randy?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Pardon?
That's Patty. The area you're talking about, it's a little bit south of Usal Road there along Highway 1, I believe. I think it's a Oprah Wheeler property. I think that's where she's talking about. And there are 3 resident bulls that stay right
was
around
walking right down.
that area.
Yeah, it was walking right down the middle of the road. That's why I could get a picture. And it's not a very good picture, but you can definitely tell it's an elk.
Yeah, I mean that'd be great to have. We've got some data on some animals using that area. Around Hardy. I think it's Hardy Creek or Wan Creek. And that area. But yeah, I mean the more that can be added in there, all the better. I would really appreciate that.
Sure.
Perfect. Any more questions for Tom? Okay, moving along, Tom. Thank you so much for your report. And if you need to depart, that's perfectly acceptable. We're going to continue on with our meeting. It's not too much longer, but thank you again for joining and giving us a report. Very valuable information.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys. It's good to see you, and we'll talk soon.
Okay, sounds great.
Thanks, Tom.
All right, we'll see you.
Okay, moving back to our agenda. Item number 5, items for discussion and possible action. There are no items, so we're
I'm going to
moving.
interrupt you. You forgot the secretary's report.
So
Back up.
where is, oh, hey, there you are. So in reports, Dee, do you have a report?
I do have a report. I have some information to share with you. So as you notice, there was a change in the agenda format. And just so you know, it was based on formats that were used in older meetings and I added back in the consent calendar to try to make the whole process just a little bit more efficient for you. So that's why you've seen that change there. I emailed the communication log to you earlier today. That you'll get that before every meeting. It shows all the communications that were received since the prior meeting and what the how we handle them and any information that was shared. So you will start getting those regularly. As far as in-person meetings, as you know, we're solely virtual today. The county is moving forward with in-person meetings. The Board of Supervisors has held a couple of a hybrid meeting, which incorporates both in-person and the virtual ability. So we should be able to move forward with that hopefully by July. So that'll be good. We'll be able to get together again in person. I wanted to remind all of you that it is mandatory that you take the Ethics and Brown Act training every year. County Council sends that out to everybody whenever they hold a class. Christian Curtis provides the training twice a year, and they will notify all of you directly when that training is coming up. And it's up to you to track that you take it at least every year, every calendar year. And when you do take it, it's important that you forward a copy of your completion certificate to the secretary so we have a record of it. As far as the audit update, we got the final report from the state. I emailed that all out to you. A letter was sent out to all of the grant recipients that were named in the final report as requiring final report from them on the expenditure of grant funds. That was sent out on April 22nd. We've received one back. Woodlands Wildlife has responded. I received their complete final report on May 4th, and I sent them a thank you note on behalf of the commission for responding so quickly. I haven't heard from the other ones yet. At Red Hawks, what?
Real quick, the final reporting that's on this packet you sent is correct with the cover sheet with the Department of Fish and Wildlife on it.
After I mailed the hard copies to you, we received the actual final findings from the state, and I emailed that to you. That one you didn't get in hard copy.
Okay,
I emailed it, so check your email.
Okay.
It's pretty much the same information, but it's just official. Okay, and it lists, I think there's 7 grant awardees that we are missing final reports on. At Red Hawk's direction, I reached out to. Go ahead.
So
did you have something else, Randy?
Did you you were broken up there a couple times.
I was just saying that
you were going to take action on 2. We lost your audio.
I think I might be losing.
I think we lost.
Can you hear me?
But we can't hear you.
Yeah, we can now. Try again.
Okay. I see there's 2 on here that I sponsor or worked with the Round Valley Indian Tribes and the Eel River Recovery Project. I can reach out to those folks individually and see if they can expedite reports.
That would be great. We have 6 months to collect these, so before the state will come back and ask us if for how we've remediated the problem. So if you do have any connections with any of them, it'd be great if you could reach out to them. At Commissioner Pallison's direction, I reached out to the Mendocino County Blacktail Association and have invited them to join in our meetings. And I haven't heard back from them, but that went out. And then, as you know, I'm your interim secretary, but we do have another county employee who has stepped up and volunteered to take on the job. Her name is Angie Lane, and she will be coming on board after this meeting. So she and I will probably do a transition meeting together in July, and then after that, she will be the one taking care of you. And that's all I have at this time.
Okay, thank you, Dee. Any questions?
Dee,
Yeah.
yeah,
Dee,
this is Patty.
Really appreciate
Yes.
your, oh, sorry.
Patty, go ahead.
That's okay. Oh, well, I appreciate it too, Dee. I have a question about the findings. Do you want any comments from us on this, or is this something that we will do at a future meeting?
Comments in what respect?
Well, some of the findings seem to me a little like lacking in detail in terms of the contextual framework for which they've been made.
Mhm.
And so I think it would be good for us to sort of like who knew when what and kind of, you know, some background, because I've worked with Shamice, and I think, you know, I'm not questioning whether she did a good job, but I think some of this is needs more discussion.
I agree. And I've been talking to Adrienne Thompson at Planning and Building, who's our liaison, and she has been working with Shamice. The piece of the findings that is basically our responsibility or the commission's responsibility is these final reports on the grantees. The balance of the findings, it's up to the county to provide what's needed. It's not really up to the commission. I have reached out to Norm Brown about the travel, the one about the travel expenses. I haven't heard back from him. I don't know if anybody else knows anything about that, but just to kind of help Adrienne with that. But they've gotten a lot of questions answered, but the documentation is what's missing.
I see.
So,
Well, you know, I don't know whether anybody else wants to speak to this, but I had no idea we even had a vehicle. And so I'm not sure why we have a vehicle or whether we have commissioners have ever used it and why we're paying an exorbitant amount per month to garage it in a non-public facility.
That was a big question for everyone, and between Randy and Red Hawk, we got that all sorted out. So that vehicle, they're working on. It's now back in the county's possession, and they are working on trying to determine how it was paid for, which would determine what happens from this point out. Like if propagation funds were used to purchase the vehicle, they would have to deal with it one way. If the county funds were used to purchase the vehicle, they'd have to deal with it another way, but that's on the county to sort out. Thankfully, it's not the commission's responsibility to sort that out, so.
Right. Okay, and then the one other thing, I'm sorry to take up time on this, but we had no administrative support after Beth left for, I think it was about 18 months. So no meetings were held during that time. And so some of the stuff I think could have been mitigated or addressed if we had been meeting and having support. Anyway, that's it for me.
It's all from 16, 17 and 17, 18. So it's all, and so there's been a big change in personnel since then, you know, with the commissioners and support and everything. So it's kind of hard to try to find answers. And while the county is very understanding about that, the state isn't so much. So I think we can just do the best we can. The big thing is if we don't get those final reports, the state is going to say that we have to ask for the money back from the grant awards. So that's why it's so important to get those final reports.
Did you hear that, Randy?
So Red Hawk, you had a question?
Yes. So to kind of answer Patty's question, so this vehicle that we have, from what I understand, is a fish hauler that somehow was acquired for the Ukiah Rod and Gun Club. And they've been housing and using it for a number of years. And so that's where the confusion was, is none of us really knew about it. And we were able to finally track it down. So I think that's your question about the vehicle.
Yeah, but I'm just still wondering why we would be paying for it.
Exactly. So I think that was something, I believe it was Pat Ford in that time years ago. I mean, this is something that is long, it was way before me. Randy may have more information. So I'm gonna, Randy has his hand up. So go ahead, Randy. Can you enlighten us?
Well, yeah, I was always under the impression that Pat Ford and his guys kept it down at the spillway or wherever the egg taking station is there at Lake Mendocino. And they were always kind of, took care of it, was my understanding. But I never did visually see the truck. So I don't know, if and when they used it for stocking. I think they used it to stock those lakes up Talmadge. I can't remember what they're called up there,
Mill Creek Reservoir.
Anyway, those ponds up the hill there, and they did some work. Yeah, Mill Creek Reservoir. But every time that we would stock like Hammerhorn or Howard Lake Fish and Wild, we'd always use Fish and Wildlife's truck. They'd bring their own rig. We never did really use it. So, I'm in favor of disbanding that agreement or something, and putting the money somewhere else. Where it would be better used.
Sounds good. Dee, you have a question?
Well, just to add to the discussion, the problem is that we could use if Fish and Game funds were used to purchase the vehicle, that's one thing, but the funds cannot be used for ongoing maintenance. It's like grant funding is a one-time thing. You can't award money that goes on over fiscal years to pay for maintenance and fuel and stuff like that. So there was a problem in this whole how this whole thing was set up, and everybody who's involved with it is no longer involved with the commission. So we're trying to piece it together and figure out what happened. So that's what the problem is. That's the violation that caused it to be part of the audit findings is the commission could have said, recommended that the money be used to purchase the vehicle, and that would be one thing, but the commission cannot designate that funds would be spent over multiple years to support it. And that's why it's an audit finding, and it's a misuse of the propagation funds. So, and to add to it, it's a vehicle that has a county number and a county seal. It has county seals on the door. So it's just really convoluted and confusing. So we're working on figuring that out.
Thank you.
Okay, sounds good.
That's all I have for my report.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Thank you for all your
great job, Dee. Thank you,
and bringing us back.
I'm happy to help. Thank you. You're welcome. I'm happy to help.
Okay, going back to the agenda, that wraps up our reports. There's nothing, no items for discussion. And moving on to commissioner reports. I have no report. Commissioner Madigan, do you have a report?
I think thank you. My only report is that I retired March 16th from the Mendocino County Resource Conservation District after 21 years. So I'm happy to be a liaison still if any of the commissioners or anybody wants contact information for anybody there. But pretty much that's it for me. And I look forward to seeing your faces sometime. We had a 16,000 home outage of telephone and internet service today on the coast. So that's why it took me so long to connect.
Right. We heard that just before you came on board. So, well, congratulations on your retirement. And
thank you.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Commissioner Van, any report?
Yeah, I was invited by Frank Abley from the Mendocino National Forest Service to participate in a Zoom meeting uh, with himself and a few of his staff and CalDeer to maybe look at some projects that we might be interested in helping sponsor or co-sponsor on the Mendocino National Forest. The Hammerhorn, Howard Lake after the 2012 August complex stuff went through. It sounds like they're starting to get some energy and money focused on, doing some rehabilitation work up there on that area. So I said, sure, I'll call in and, and listen in on behalf of the Fish and Game Commission.
Fantastic. And when is that, or when did it happen?
Yeah. It hasn't happened yet. I told Frank I was going to reach out to my fellow commissioners and, see how they felt about our participation in that. And I believe the meeting, it's within the next 2 weeks. We haven't really pinpointed a date yet. So, but I can definitely let everybody know. Maybe it's something that someone else might want to zoom in on, and listen in on what's being said.
Hey, Randy, this is Patty. Do they still owe us a report from a previous project?
I believe they do, and that had to do with the Hammerhorn project. It doesn't show that it's delinquent on Dee's list. Yeah, they're not on it, so I'm not sure if I know we had some discussion on this, just verbal discussion regarding that, and we're talking with Frank and whatnot, and apparently the monies were spent, but everything burned up in the August complex, so I'm not exactly sure what type of report looking at them for follow-up on that when there's really nothing to show for the work. It all went up in smoke.
I mean, as long as it doesn't create another finding for the next audit.
It should have been completed in this audit, Dee. So if nothing came up in regards to that grant, I think that something must be okay.
So to answer that question, Randy, the target area that they had went around the Hammerhorn project. And so if we're audited again, we could be if they hit that time frame, they may be asking for it. So it'd probably be a good idea to get that final report, whatever they use the monies on, but just have that final report since the money was spent. So we kind of cover ourselves now, now that we know when they're doing an audit, what they're looking for. Let's make sure that's covered because we have never received a final report.
Okay.
Dee, you have your hand up?
I was just going to say the same
Okay.
thing. You covered it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
The audit period didn't cover the years that money was granted. So they should give us the best that they can do to report out on how they spent the money and explain why they can't provide the documentation that's normally required. Then we should be okay.
Okay. Ed, what was the funding on that 25,000?
You were broken.
But the funding we allocated for that project that year was 25,000, I believe, correct?
That's correct.
Correct.
I think it was the 2015-16 year.
Okay, if that concludes the commissioner reports, I would like to go to the final part of our meeting. And normally we would have our next meeting July 12th. However, I will not be here and neither will Dee. So I'm proposing that we put our next meeting July 19th. That would be the following Tuesday.
This is Commissioner
yeah,
Madigan.
I'm in
That's
favor of
fine with
that.
me. Mm-hmm. As
Okay.
long as we can do a hybrid.
I hope so too.
Yeah.
So we're in agreement. Our next meeting will be July 19th.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah,
Do we
1,800
need to
hours.
make a motion on any of that?
Yep, that's where I'm, we don't need to make a motion for the meeting change, but I need to make a motion to adjourn the meeting. And we're at that point, and so I'm calling for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
This is Patty. I'd so move.
Make a motion to adjourn. And I'd also like,
So Patty made the motion, Randy, you seconded it.
sure.
Do we need to do a vote? We do,
Yes.
let's call for a vote, Dee?
Commissioner Van,
Yeah, I'm in favor of adjourning.
Commissioner Madigan,
Yeah.
Allison.
Aye. Okay, meeting adjourned at 6:47 PM. That was pretty good
Thank
meeting.
you so much, everybody.
Thanks
Yeah,
again,
good
Dee.
meeting for three of us. Okay, we'll see you next time, guys.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Dee. Thanks, Red
Welcome.
Hawk. Thanks, Randy.